There is a secret fraternity of men that exists in every city, in every town, and in every country. You won't find them on the covers of magazines. You won't find them arguing in the comments section of Facebook. They are the men who have quietly, methodically, and permanently stepped off the playing field. I'm talking about the men in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, who have looked at the game of life as it is played today and simply set down the controller. These are not the men hiding in their basements. These are the men you see at the hardware store at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, looking calm. These are the men driving classic cars with the windows down, alone. These are the men sitting at the end of the bar, sipping a drink, watching the chaos of the younger couples around them with a look that isn't envy, it's pity. They have discovered the secret that society is terrified to admit. They have discovered that the prize at the end of the race isn't a partner. The prize is you. I have sat with these men. I have listened to them when the wives and the girlfriends and the children are not around, and they all tell a variation of the same story. It is the story of the completed mission. Quote, they say, I did my time, I paid my dues, I carried the load, and I'm not signing up for another tour of duty. To your family, this looks like surrender. To your friends, it looks like depression. But to you, to the man who has actually lived through the trenches of a 30-year marriage or the meat grinder of modern divorce, it feels like Victory Day. It feels like the moment the armistice was signed and the guns finally went silent. To understand why a man chooses to stay single in his later years, you have to understand the war he just came home from. You have to understand the biology that sent him there and the clarity that finally brought him home. The draft. How you got here. Think back to when you were 25. You didn't really have a choice, did you? We like to think we have free will, but at 25, a man is a biological machine programmed for one thing: provision and protection. Your testosterone was screaming at you. It was a chemical commander in your brain giving you orders you couldn't refuse. It told you that your worth as a man was directly tied to who you could attract, who you could provide for, and who you could protect. You were built to be a draft horse. You saw a woman, and the chemical fog descended. You didn't see the red flags. You didn't see the incompatibility. You saw a mission. You saw a challenge. You saw a beautiful creature that needed a strong back to carry her dreams, and you volunteered your back. So, you put on the harness. You entered the workforce not just to make money, but to make enough money to support the infrastructure of a family. You took the mortgage. You bought the minivan. You paid for the weddings, the braces, the tuitions, the vacations. You became the rock. But here's the thing about being a rock. You get eroded. For decades, you were the emotional shock absorber for your household. You absorbed her anxiety. You absorbed the kids' chaos. You stood stoic in the face of financial crisis, health scares, and marital strife. You were the logic buffer for the emotional storms. You learned to manage. You learned that your needs were always secondary to the stability of the unit. You learned that if you wanted to buy a motorcycle, it was a negotiation. If you wanted to go fishing, it was a trade-off. If you wanted silence, it was an insult. You existed in a state of constant, low-level vigilance. You were always scanning the horizon for the next problem you had to solve, the next fire you had to put out, the next mood you had to fix. And then, the mission ended. Maybe she left, maybe you left, maybe life took her away. And suddenly, the harness was off. The silence of the aftermath. The first time a draft horse has the harness taken off, he feels strange, he feels light, he feels phantom pressure on his shoulders. You felt it too. The first few months of being single were disorienting. You walked around your empty house, waiting for the orders to come down. What needs fixing? Who is upset? What is the schedule? But no orders came. And in that vacuum, something miraculous began to grow. Peace. You realized that the silence wasn't empty. It was full. It was full of your thoughts. For the first time in decades, you could hear yourself think without the background static of someone else's needs. You realized that the anxiety you had been medicating with work, or alcohol, or distractions wasn't your anxiety. It was contagious anxiety you had been catching from your partner. And now that the source was gone, you were cured. You started to reclaim your territory. The bathroom sink was clean, the thermostat was where you left it. The money you earned stayed in the account until you decided to move it. You discovered the intoxication of absolute autonomy. And just as you were starting to breathe, just as you were starting to enjoy the feeling of the sun on your face without a to-do list, the recruitment officers showed up. The recruitment officers, society's pressure. Society hates a free man. A man who is single, solvent and satisfied is a threat to the social order. He is a resource that is not being exploited, and society cannot stand unexploited resources. So the recruitment begins. Your sister says, "I have a friend you should meet." Your married buddies say, "You can't live like a hermit." The commercials, the movies, the songs, they all tell you that a man alone is a tragic figure. A man alone is sad. A man alone is incomplete. They are trying to shame you back into the harness. They want you to re-enlist. They want you to sign up for another tour of duty. They look at your freedom and they call it loneliness, because they cannot fathom that you might actually prefer your own company to the chaos they go home to every night. So, maybe you try it, you dip a toe in, you download the apps, you go on the dates. And this is where the decision is solidified. This is where the older man looks at the deal on the table and walks away laughing. The modern battlefield, what you are being offered. You are 60 years old, you are a veteran, you have scars, you have assets, you have wisdom. You walk into the modern dating market, and what do you find? You find women who are looking for a captain to steer a ship that is already sinking. You meet women who are drowning in debt, drowning in family drama, drowning in unresolved trauma from 3 past marriages, and they aren't looking for a partner. They are looking for a savior. They look at you, and they don't see you. They don't see the man who likes jazz and restores old radios. They see a resource node. They see a pension. They see a house that is paid off. They see a man who is stable enough to absorb their chaos. You listen to them talk on the first date. "My ex was a narcissist. My kids won't talk to me. I have so much anxiety. I need a man who can handle me." You sit there and you have a flashback to the trenches. You remember the arguments. You remember the stress. You remember the feeling of being the emotional trash can for someone else's problems. And you look at this woman who brings nothing to the table but demands, and you compare her to your quiet living room. You compare her to your Saturday morning coffee. You compare her to your financial freedom. You compare her to your peace. And the math is brutal. The clarity of the post-testosterone mind. Here is the superpower that no one talks about. When you were 25, you would have taken the deal. You would have ignored the red flags because your biology demanded access to intimacy. You would have signed the contract just to get the girl. But now, the chemical fog is gone. The biological hijacker has left the building. You are thinking with your prefrontal cortex, not your libido. You are seeing the world with high-definition clarity. You realize that sex, while nice, is not worth the price of your soul. You realize that companionship, while pleasant, is not worth the price of your sovereignty. You have evolved past the need to be needed. This is what terrifies your family. They see you turning down dates, they see you deleting the apps, they think you are giving up. They don't understand that you aren't giving up. You are leveling up. You have reached a state of existence where your own well-being is the primary directive. You have realized that you cannot save everyone. You saved your first family. You did your job. You are not obligated to save a stranger at the expense of your remaining years. The sanctuary, the life you choose. So, what does this sad, lonely life look like? The one they warn you about? Let's really look at it. You wake up. The time is yours. If you want to sleep until 10, you do. If you want to get up at 4 a.m. and drive to the coast, you do. There is no one to check in with. There is no permission slip to sign. You walk into your kitchen. It is clean. You make the food you like, the steak, the eggs, the things she used to say were bad for you. You eat in peace, listening to a podcast, or the birds, or nothing at all. You go to your work, or your hobby. Maybe you are still building a business. Maybe you are woodworking. Maybe you are learning to fly a plane. You engage in deep work. You have hours of uninterrupted focus. You feel your brain sharpening. You feel the satisfaction of competence. Your friendships are real. You don't have couples friends anymore. You don't have to sit through dinner with people you hate. You have your brotherhood. You have the men you served with, the men you work with, the men who understand the code. You go on trips. You talk about ideas, not people. You laugh that deep belly laugh that was suppressed for years. Your home is your fortress. It is the one place on earth where you are the absolute authority. There is no passive aggression in the air. There is no energy you have to manage. When you close the door, the world stays out. You have reclaimed your nervous system. Your health improves. The cortisol drops, the stress belly disappears. You sleep deeper than you have in 30 years. You realize that aging wasn't making you tired. Management was making you tired. Managing emotions, managing expectations, managing conflict, that is what aged you. Now that you are only managing yourself, you feel 10 years younger. The contrast, the bullet you dodged, and every now and then you get a reminder of why you chose this path. You meet a buddy for a drink. He's re-enlisted. He got married again at 58. You see it in his eyes, the fatigue, the 1,000-yard stare. He checks his phone nervously. "I have to get back," he says. "She's having a rough day." He talks about his new stepkids and their legal troubles. He talks about the renovations she wants to do on the house he liked just fine. He talks about the arguments over where to spend Christmas. You look at him, and you see a man who walked out of a prison cell only to shackle himself to a new wall because he was afraid of the open field. You buy him a drink, you listen, you nod. And then you walk out to your car, you start the engine, you roll the windows down, and you drive home to your silence. And in that moment, the gratitude hits you so hard it almost brings you to tears. The verdict: dying free. People try to scare you with the ultimate threat: you're going to die alone. It is the boogeyman they use to keep men in line. But you know the truth about death. We all die alone. You can die alone in a hospital room while your wife argues with the doctors in the hallway. You can die alone in a bed next to a woman who has resented you for the last 10 years. You can die alone in a house full of people who are secretly waiting for the inheritance. Or you can die having lived the last chapter of your life as a free man. You can die knowing that you didn't compromise your peace. You can die knowing that you spent your time, your money, and your energy on things that actually mattered to you. You are not choosing to be alone. You are choosing to be whole. You are choosing to protect the man you fought so hard to become. You are refusing to dilute your essence just to make other people comfortable with your existence. So, to the older men who have walked away, hold the line. You are the Ronin. You are the masterless samurai. You have set down the sword of the provider and picked up the cup of the sage. Do not let them shame you. Do not let them guilt you. Do not let them convince you that your peace is a problem to be solved. Your peace is the point. Your freedom is the trophy. Your silence is the victory song. You survived the war. You don't have to go back. Sit on the porch, watch the sun go down, drink the coffee. You've earned it.